What's up guys, TSJAwesome 628 here, back again with another F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, this time for the Japanese Grand Prix. And in the last episode we won the Constructors' Championship of the Russia Grand Prix, had it confirmed, and in this episode we can win the Drivers' Championship. But saying that, we said we need to get 6 points. It is going to be hard, as this is a very weak track for me compared to the AI. It's one of the AI's strongest. Probably this and Britain are the two strongest, but we do have some activities to put on, so we know for reaction training, chassis equipment upgrade, and race simulations. And to be honest, I don't really see why I need to give Ricardo some more reaction training. He's already probably going to be good enough for this race in the first place. But we do have the other two perks to purchase, as we didn't have enough money to purchase them in the last episode. So now we're going to be level 3 on everything, which is good news. And, well, it should hopefully give us a benefit in the race as well. And I do think I can get the P7 that is required. If I do get P7, then I win the championship no matter what, even if Ricardo wins the fastest lap. So, because we have such a dominant car, I think we'll be able to do it. So one of our upgrades has failed, and we're going to need to go repurchase it. And we also have an invitational result, which we're going to do, which we've just done it. The invitational events, these are pretty simple, but 1,000 free acclaim, 150,000 cash. And now it's time to repurchase the upgrade that failed. It was our ultimate chassis upgrade, so we're going to have to wait until the USA Grand Prix until we have that. We did obviously rush it because we wanted it in time for the Japanese Grand Prix, but no harm done. It's just about time and trying to get as many upgrades on the car before the end of the season to make our car as good as possible. But now it's time to get into the race weekend at Suzuka, and the weather forecast is unsurprisingly completely dry. We've only had one wet race this year, and that was the Dutch Grand Prix. We had a couple of slightly wet qualifyings at the last episode of Russia and Italy, but I wonder if we're even going to get any rain between now and the end of the season. Now it's time for some more upgrades after practice, and we're going to purchase probably our final aerodynamics upgrade. Unless we can afford to upgrade the aerodynamics facility to Spec 3, then it will be our final aerodynamics upgrade of the season, and it's a minor one that will come onto the car. And we're also going to purchase a durability upgrade for the MGK, and that will be able to come hopefully in time for the USA Grand Prix, as we're going to rush it, because that would save 2 Grand Prix in terms of it coming for. So hopefully it doesn't fail, even though it has a high failure chance. But now it's time to head on to qualifying, but first we're going to have a look at the performance index, just to show how far ahead we are. But then Mercedes are actually not that far ahead of Ferrari and Red Bull and Racing, and they're sort of in the 3 teams just behind Mercedes, pretty close, and then obviously come very close between Renault, McLaren and AlphaTauri, which is also shown in the championship. But as we head on to qualifying, our first lap, and I still think we're going to have the pace to easily be in Q3 and probably still be fighting at the front, but you never know at Suzuka. The AI are very OP around here, but considering we did have the pace at Britain, which is probably another reference point, I would expect us to be fighting towards the front, but probably not quite matching our teammates. And at the end of Q1, we were second off our teammates, and to be honest, I wasn't really surprised. It wasn't the greatest lap for me, but I wasn't expecting to be near him in qualifying, as we were only a 10th quicker than Bottas, who was third. As per usual, it's the Alfa Romeo Haas cars and Williams cars that got knocked out in Q1, with Magnussen 17th, Russell 18th, Latifi 19th, Grosjean 20th, De Vries 21st, and Jack Aitken in 22nd. But Giovinazzi was the car that just made it through in 16th, as all the other cars pretty comfortably made it through, but Giovinazzi was 3 tenths behind Kvyat in 15th, and was only a tenth ahead of Magnussen. But he makes it through, and we'll see what he can do in the next session and whether he can improve and be closer to the rest of the pack. But now on to Q2, and as shown by Q1, we did definitely have a pace for second, and I'm probably going to just have to aim for that in this qualifying session, as Ricciardo looked very quick in Q1, and we're going to come across the line for our first lap in Q2, and our only lap is a 1:24.2, which will safely see us through to the next session, as there wasn't any drama, and we were third overall, though, behind Hamilton and Ricciardo. Only 3 tenths off Ricciardo, though, but he was on medium tyres, and that just shows he's probably in for a domination of a weekend, and to be honest, he needs it, and he needs us to be down the order in around 7th, if he wants to have a chance in the championship. So Hamilton put in a good lap to split us, and Leclerc was in 4th in the Ferrari, and then Perez in 5th, both sending identical lap times. So Leclerc obviously set his first, which is why he's ahead, and then Verstappen was 6th, also making Q3. The other Ferrari, Vettel, also made it through. The other Mercedes, Bottas, quite far behind his teammate, but still making it through. The McLaren of Carlos Sainz made it through. Obviously, he hasn't scored many points this season, so we'll see what he can do. And Lance Stroll in the Racing Point. He will make it through. Obviously, he's been good this season in the championship, as well as Verstappen. They're both fighting just behind the two Mercedes cars in the championship. Gasly just missed out on 11th, 2,000th till the gap was to Lance Stroll, so pretty close, couldn't have been much closer. Albon was 12th, Ocon 13th, Norris 14th, Giovinazzi 15th, and Kvyat, even though he's had good form at Russia and Singapore, was not able to continue that at Japan, and he will start 16th. Into Q3, and it's a bit more overcast, and we'll see where this. I think it's probably just going to be a comfortable P2 and not much more. But obviously Hamilton showed that he could challenge us during Q2, so we will have to watch out from behind. But we do set a faster lap than we did in Q2 by a few tenths, and it's already a 24 flat. And we're going to head out for our second lap, and Ricciardo is miles quicker. And what makes things probably slightly worse is Ricciardo is in the pits. He's not even going to bother to go out for a second lap. I'm not sure if that was him tactically saying, well, I've got pole, no one's going to match me, or whether he ran out of tyres, but he only did 1 lap in this session, and I already know it's going to be enough to pole because it's a 1:22.9, and I'm not gaining a second on this lap. I gained quite a bit of time, 4 tenths, but it's still only enough for P2, and that's where we'll have to line up on the grid, and maybe with the fact that Ricciardo's starting on mediums, we can get some track position and maybe challenge.
Ricciardo, Thomas, and Valtteri Bottas. Well, that wraps up qualifying, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow as we head into the Grand Prix.
So, Ricciardo gets pole by 6 tenths in the end, with only 1 lap in the session, and we're going to have to settle for second, and our chances aren't looking good in the race. Bottas is in third, 1.6 seconds off the pace, quite far ahead of his teammates, as the two Ferraris will line up 4th and 5th. McLaren Vettel. Sainz puts in a great qualifying for McLaren in 6th. He really needs a good result to try and kickstart his season, even though it's coming towards the end of the season. With Perez in 7th in the Renault trying to continue his good form. Hamilton very disappointing in 8th, and disappointing with Verstappen and Stroll as well in 9th and 10th. I'm not sure those three got really any decent lap in. Obviously Hamilton was only 2 tenths off his teammate, and that was the gap from 3rd to 8th. But Verstappen and Stroll were 3 tenths behind Hamilton, so I'm not sure they put in particularly good laps. They couldn't even get into the 24s. Verstappen setting a 25.000, so right on the edge of the 24s. But Verstappen and Stroll obviously very close in the championship, and they'll be starting again on the same row as each other. I think they seem to always find a way to do that now. Yeah, it is always good to qualify at the front, especially a track like this where I wasn't so confident going to it, but the chassis department's done a brilliant job in preparing a car that is good enough for P2. I think they've worked hard this season, trying to learn from their mistakes, but they haven't quite been able to get the results because of it. It just wasn't our day. It was completely Ricciardo's day. He dominated qualifying, and I was never really a match for him. He got everything out of the car that he needed to, whereas I couldn't.
Appreciate your time. Time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Daniel Ricciardo has a clear view ahead from pole position, and Thomas completes the front row. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Bottas, Leclerc, Sebastian Vettel, and Sainz, Perez, Hamilton, Verstappen, and Lance Stroll, Albon, Ocon, Lando Norris, and Giovinazzi, Fiat, Gasly, Kevin Magnussen, and George Russell, Latifi, Grosjean, De Vries, and Jack Aitken.
So we're going to go for the one-stop. Usually in most races of the season I've gone for the two-stop, even if the one-stop's an option, unless the one-stop's been soft or medium. But I don't think we're going to have the pace in this race to do a two-stop, and I think the one-stop is just going to be better here in Japan anyway. So we're going to go from soft to hard in this race, and hopefully, because Ricciardo's starting on mediums, we can maybe try and challenge him. But it's 5 red lights, it's lights out and away we go, and we do not get a good start, and that's not what we needed. If we wanted to challenge him, we probably needed to jump him into turn 1 with his harder tyres. We do keep P2 though, despite our not so great launch. But Leclerc will try and challenge us up the inside, but we successfully defend from him, and at the end of that one, we're over a second ahead of him, but Ricciardo's already setting a fastest lap, and he's 9/10 ahead of us. But as we head towards the end of lap 2, we pulled it out to 6/10 and fastest lap in this race, showing maybe it isn't all over, and maybe we can challenge, and we do lose more time, about 5/10 on the next lap, and we're just in DRS range when the detection point arrives, which means that we do gain quite a bit of time on the straight, and another fastest lap in this race, and we're already right on the back of Ricciardo, and we couldn't quite go for a move on him into turn 1, we were just a bit too far back. But the early signs are promising. Obviously he is on a harder set of compounds of tyres, and he probably will in the second stint be much quicker than us, but if maybe we can hold track position of something to fight for, we may be able to come on top. So in correlation with that, we are going to go for the move into turn 1 here, and we're going to go up the inside. No contact, so we're not going to do what Prost and Senna did and crash out at turn 1, but that's not how we're going to decide the championship. We want clean racing here, and we want to win the championship on merit, not taking out our other competitor. So we're going to continue on in this race with the lead, and we're going to try and see if we can pull away. Now on board with Esteban Ocon, who is looking to challenge Alex Albon into turn 1. Ocon is probably the only other driver other than Ricciardo starting in mediums in this race. He's going to go around the outside of Albon into turn 1, so he seems to have found a bit of pace on his medium tyres, and he'll be able to also go long like Ricciardo, and maybe able to challenge later on in the race. But another purple sector at the end of lap 6, and we're just outside of DRS until we were at 1 point ahead of Ricciardo, but now he's closing back in. I think he must have just got DRS, which means the gap was only 6/10. And as we come to lap 8, our pit stop lap, the gap is still just around 6/7, and we have not been able to pull away from Ricciardo. But we will get an undercut of a couple of laps, and I hope these hard tyres can switch on quickly, because we're going to need to pull out the other gap if we want something to fight for, because I know Ricciardo's going to be quick on his medium tyres, and he's not going to have any traffic whatsoever, whereas we may, because we're not that quick around here, so we haven't been able to pull out the usual gap, and we're going to come out just behind Albon and Giovinazzi, and Pierre Gasly is probably going to be side by side with us into turn 1, but he backs out, and that's very good news for us, because he could have easily tried to keep it side by side, and he probably would have got the position because he'd had the better line, but he's backed out, and he's allowed us the position, and that's allowed us about 2 seconds to Giovinazzi and Albon, and a bit of clean air to work with to try and push before Ricciardo comes in for his pit stop. I still think Ricciardo will have to go mediums to hards. I don't think he'll quite be able to stretch it from mediums to softs. I don't think that's really that possible. But on to the next lap, we've caught out to Albon and Giovinazzi, who are going to go side by side into turn 1. And we've just got so much overspeed. We're going to go up the inside of Albon, and Giovinazzi goes very wide at turn 1. So we're going to nip up the inside of him, and a very opportunistic move, but it's a move that's worked, and we move ourselves up 2 positions in this race, and at the end of lap 10, everyone else is into the pits, and we're up to 3rd, just behind the 2 medium runners of Ocon and Ricciardo. As I said, the only 2 in this race. Now a ball with Danny Kvyat, who is one of 2 drivers, along with Lando Norris, who's gone for the 2-stop in this race. I said it wasn't a great option, and that's why we're going for the 1-stop, but he's going to have to make some moves here, and he's going to try and overtake Romain Grosjean, and he successfully does so. Now it's Lando Norris's turn to try and make a move on Romain. And the Haas car on the hards should be no match for either the AlphaTauri or McLaren on the softs, so Norris is going to dispatch him pretty quickly, and Norris is going to go up the inside into 130R, so a good move, but 130R is obviously flat out now, so it doesn't need quite the commitment it used to need, but it's still a good move by Lando, and he moves himself up a position in this race. Almost setting a fastest lap for us at the end of lap 11, 800ths off, but it's showing that we do have good pace. The gap to Ricciardo is just under 19 seconds, and now it seems Giovinazzi's going to come up the pits, and he's going to be side by side with Pierre Gasly, and Giovinazzi's going to be just behind Pierre Gasly in this race. And now I'm ball with Sergio Perez, who is looking to challenge Sebastian Vettel here, and Sebastian Vettel hasn't had that much patience since he's behind the battle of Sainz, Bottas and Leclerc, and now he's going to lose out to Sergio Perez, it seems here. And Perez is going to overtake him. Vettel couldn't even seem to catch up to the Williams, who made a pit stop, so he may have some kind of issue in this race. As now, after Perez has overtaken him, it looks like Valtteri Bottas, no, it's not actually, it looks like Lewis Hamilton will go for a move on him. Then it looks like Lance Stroll is also going to try and go for a move in the next couple of laps. But now on board with us, we caught up to Esteban Ocon here, and Ricciardo has indeed pitted, but we're probably going to be slightly held up by Esteban Ocon, as Lance Stroll is now going to go for a move on Sebastian Vettel, and he's going to go up the inside into 130R, but he's so much quicker, and Vettel must have an issue, because there's no way that Stroll should be gaining that much time on him on a straight that doesn't even have DRS. Now on board with Kvyat and Norris again, as they catch up to the other Haas car of George Russell, and Kvyat's going to go up the inside into turn 1, and he successfully makes a move and squeezes Russell slightly on the inside, and Kvyat moves up a position in this race. Now back on board with Sergio Perez, who has caught up to the Williams car of Nick De Vries in this race, and he's going to go up the inside of Nick De Vries, and he just outbreaks him into the chicane, or the Casio triangle I think it's called, and he has moved himself up in this race. Now on board with us again, we're setting our Ocon here. We've got so much more pace than him, and we're going to be able to make a move on him here, but he pulls into the pits anyway, so he just gives us some free DRS, and we're going to move on in this race. Just under 2 seconds to gap to Ricciardo, and as long as we can keep him out of DRS range, it'll be good, and I think it's just about trying to manage the gap and pushing flat out for a few laps. Now on board with Lando Norris again, he's going to try and overtake George Russell now, and he successfully does so through 130R again, and now on board with Alex Albon here, and he's also going to try and overtake Sebastian Vettel, and he's going to go up the inside into turn 1, and Vettel definitely has an issue. So on board with Nick De Vries, who was battling with obviously the Renault cars after his late pit stop, and he's just ahead of his teammate here, and he is going to retire from this Grand Prix as he has an engine failure here, and that's not good news for him, as he will have to retire from this Grand Prix. And we set a new fastest lap this Grand Prix, as we get confirmation that Nick De Vries is indeed out of the session, and the gap to Ricciardo is now 2 seconds, so we're trying to push in this race and trying to get away from him. We do seem to have a bit better pace than I originally thought we would. Now on board with Pierre Gasly, who's also going to try and overtake Sebastian Vettel, and they're going to go side by side through 130R, and Vettel's going to try and defend into the Casio triangle, and he's going to try and squeeze out Pierre Gasly, and it seems he's successfully done so, but Gasly fights back around the outside to the final corner, and Gasly looks to be able to gain the position on Sebastian Vettel, and moves himself up a position in this race. and now on board with 2 Hascars, and Romain Grosjean is going to try and overtake George Russell into turn 1, and he's successfully done so. So Romain Grosjean moves himself up a position, and he's going to be the lead Hascar now in this race, as we've extended the gap to 2.4 seconds over Ricardo with another purple sector, a 10th away from our previous best. And as we head on to the next lap, Ricardo is going to respond by gaining about 3/10 on us, and he doesn't quite set a new fastest lap in this Grand Prix, but it seems like lap after lap, one lap I'm gaining, then the next lap he's gaining, as we're now on board with Valtteri Bottas, who's trying to pressure Carlos Sainz. This is for P4, so this would be Sainz' best result of the season so far, as Bottas is going to go up the inside into turn 1, but Sainz is going to defend pretty aggressively, but he really wants those points as he's struggled for most of this season, and he's going to be trying to maintain 4th position, as again we're a 10th off our fastest lap, and it's just trying to keep the gap at 2 seconds, and at this point I was just happy with my pace about a 10th off my fastest lap, and I was thinking every time Ricardo's going to maybe set a specifically quick lap, as he hasn't done so far on this lap, but every time he will, I'm going to try and then go a bit quicker and push a bit more. At the moment I was happy with my current pace, and now on board with Kvyat again, and after he's made his 2nd pit stop, he's going to be trying to overtake the sole Williams of Jack Aitken, and he's going to successfully do so into turn 1. So he moves himself up position in this race, and on this next lap, lap 21, Ricardo does set a fastest lap, so we need to slightly up our pace to make sure he doesn't catch us. And on the next lap, it's our turn to respond, and we set a new fastest lap, 3/10 quicker than our previous best. And we pushed a bit more on that lap to extend the gap back out to 2 seconds. We want to keep it around 2 seconds, because we don't want him getting close to DRS range, as we're now 800ths off this fastest lap, and I think we can maintain the pace we're currently at. But now on board with Lando Norris, he needs to overtake the sole Williams in this race, and he's going to go around the outside of turn 1, as he was also on the 2-stop in this Grand Prix, and as we start on lap 24, the gap to Ricardo is 2.4 seconds. So I honestly thought he was going to have more pace than me in this race, and so far he hasn't shown any of it, so I'm not sure where all his pace in qualifying has gone. But now on board with Carlos Sainz, and he is going to try and take the podium away from Charles Leclerc here, and he's done so as he's taken the position into turn 1, and Sainz have been catching Leclerc over the last few laps, and Leclerc wasn't particularly quick, but Sainz has now taken the podium position. And as we head on to lap 25, Ricardo does set another fastest lap this Grand Prix, so it will be our turn to respond shortly, but first we're now on board with Valtteri Bottas, who's also going to try and overtake Charles Leclerc, and I'm not sure, Leclerc seems to be struggling in this race, and Bottas is going to try and force his way out the inside through the Casio Triangle, but Leclerc will hold on now, but now Bottas will get DRS, and Bottas is going to head up the inside into turn 1, move himself up to 4th, and Sainz has that much breathing room for his first podium of the season, so we set another fastest lap on lap 25, as we're going to be catching up to a lap car very shortly, but on board with Pierre Gasly here, who's just had Sebastian Vettel, and some black smoke is coming out the back of this car, and usually it's more greyish or whitish on this game, but he has to pull to the side, and something has failed in the back of that car, and he has had to DNF from this Grand Prix. We're going to lap Jack Aitken here as we get confirmation of Gasly's DNF, as we are on the penultimate lap, and as we start the final lap, the gap to Ricardo is 1.9 seconds, and he just hasn't challenged us in this race, which means we're going to be world champion. And Ricardo has suddenly gained a second on this lap, and right through this lap I was thinking, why isn't Ricardo pushed at all in this stint? Because as you're about to see what his fastest lap's about to be, he is going to absolutely smash fastest lap by about a second over me. And we're going to be world champion though. So, no radio message from Jeff. I thought he was going to say, congratulations, that means your driver's world champion, but nothing was said, and we get to see our celebration at us doing donuts. So, constructors and drivers world champions this year, and that's exactly what we set out to try and achieve, and we've successfully done it, and I'm ecstatic to be drivers world champion. as we celebrate with our mechanics here and the rest of our team. A lot of cameras around, but a driver owner winning a Constructors' Championship.
Certainly impressed me today. An incredible performance. Difficult call, but I'd like to say Esteban Ocon. He's just so gifted at getting the most out of his tyres, and he showed that today. I know that's at odds with the official decision, but I think they deserve some recognition on a day where both of these drivers are at the top of their game.
The Constructors' Championship may be a foregone conclusion at the moment, but regardless, let's look at the standings. Meanwhile, Renault move up the table with another strong performance this weekend. And with that, we wrap up another weekend of motorsport. But with more races lined up, be sure to join us when we come back with more Formula One.
So we win the race and the championship, the second over Ricciardo. Ricciardo still received multiple praise from Anthony Davidson. He didn't win the race despite getting pole position and dominating the pace, really, because his fastest lap was so much quicker than mine. And if he'd just shown his pace he had in the final lap at any other lap, he would have dominated this Grand Prix. And so we're grateful to him, but Sainz, he's also going to be very happy with his result. He was robbed of the podium at the British Grand Prix, but he's not going to be robbed of one of the Japanese Grand Prix as he takes home McLaren's third podium of the season, with Bottas in fourth, just behind. Leclerc lost 2 positions late on to finish 5th, so he missed out on the podium, with Verstappen taking home a quite good result in 6th. Ocon recovered to 7th on his slightly alternate strategy, starting on the mediums, ahead of his teammate Perez, Hamilton and Lance Stroll, who round out the top 10. Alex Albon just missed out on points, just ahead of Sebastian Vettel, who had issues in this race, as we saw, and Antonio Giovinazzi, sort of nowhere in this Grand Prix, 13th, only really fighting off at Alfa Romeo's. So we saw him overtake Alex Albon into turn 1, and then since then he obviously lost the position to Alex Albon and just had no pace during the second stint. So Nicholas Latifi beat his teammate Kevin Magnussen, which I don't think happens very often, and we saw Grosjean overtook Russell in that race, and then Kvyat and Norris doing the 2-stop. Not really sure why, but it really cost them in this race, and they finished 18th and 19th. And Jack Aitken in the Sol Williams finished 20th, with Pierre Gasly and Nick de Vries failing to finish this Grand Prix, even though Gasly was classified because the DNF was so late on. We're Drivers' World Champions, so 130 points we are in front, cannot be caught. I think Ricciardo in the final 4 races can only get 104 points, so we are champion. And then Bottas, obviously, 71 points behind Ricciardo, and Ricciardo is almost confirmed to be second, with Hamilton then 62 points behind Bottas. So I think in 1 or 2 races' time, the top 4 will be confirmed as it is. Verstappen is now 12 points ahead of Stroll, and he has had a very good weekend this time out, gaining I think 7 points or so ahead of Stroll in this race. So good for him, and Leclerc still in no man's land on 91 points. Norris is then on 60 points, just ahead of Vettel on 56. Perez on 49, and Esteban Ocon on 47, so the 2 Renaults. Then 2 Alpha Tauris of Gasly and Kvyat on 46 and 45. Then the other Racing Point of Antonio Giovinazzi on 44. Not matching the heights of his teammates. Sainz also not matching the heights of his teammates on 31, but a good podium brings them up ahead of Alex Albon, who's also had a very disappointing season, only on 25 points when his teammates challenging up there. And then the 2 Haas cars on 2 and 1 point, respectively, and then the Alfa Romeo and Williams yet to score. In the Constructors, that was also confirmed last episode, with 334 points ahead of Mercedes. And then the battle between Racing Point, Red Bull and Ferrari, only 11 points in it. Racing Point still holding on to 3rd position, Red Bull 4th, and Ferrari 5th. And then the battle between Renault, McLaren and AlphaTauri. McLaren are right back in it after their podium, and Renault also had a very good result this weekend as well, with a 6th and 7th or 7th and 8th or something. And AlphaTauri failed to score points, so Renault are now back up to 6th, McLaren 7th, and AlphaTauri down to 8th. The battle's heated up, 5 points between all 3 of them. Haas are then on 3 points, and Alfa Romeo Williams still yet to score, and only 4 races to go before they could, especially Williams, round out a pointless career mode. yes, we're a winning combination, winning in every sense of the word, and we've won both championships this season.
What is it that pushes your team above the others?
Every part of the car, the teamwork, the powertrain, the chassis, it's all brilliant.
How does it feel to be this year's Formula One champion?
Brilliant. I can't believe it. It still isn't fully sunk in yet.
How do you feel seeing your teammate up on the podium?
Very good. I thought they were going to be able to win this race, but we managed to pull out a brilliant victory. I was not expecting to win this one, so I'm very proud to win it and to see my teammate up on the podium next to me. So in the rivalry, we gain maximum points as we extend our lead to 21-8 over Lewis Hamilton, and in the team acclaim, we're almost level 19 as a team, but we're level 15, and Ricciardo's also level 15. We're slowly closing up on him with a few race victories in a row, and we gain 1.69 million through goals again as we reach our goals every week. No damage deductions again this week, so good news for the team again, as we're now up to 7.71 million in cash. I'll probably save that till we get to the next 12 mil and then maybe be able to purchase Spec 3 on the aerodynamics facilities. But other than that, there isn't much more to do this season. We've won both championships, so it's just about having fun in the last 4 episodes of this career mode, and then it will be F1 2021. So that'll be the end of the episode, and we'll see you guys next time for the USA Grand Prix.